And basically, I want people to think about what they have on their walls right now and the difference between, say, just putting something to fill a space as opposed to having an original work of art.
Collecting art can go beyond just filling an empty space on the wall. Dennis Kiel, the director of the Dishman Art Museum, looks to highlight just how personal art collecting can be in the exhibit Beaumont Collects, Works of Art from Southeast Texas Collectors, as he answers the question why Beaumont collects.
Well, first, this exhibition is on the second floor of the Dishman Art Museum, and the subtitle is "Works of Art from Southeast Texas Collections." And I want to put the show together as kind of a prelude to the Grand Ball auction, which this year will be at the Dishman Art Museum on March 25th. That event is all about collecting, and so I wanted to highlight some examples from local collections to maybe get people excited about the idea of coming to Le Grand Ball and actually purchasing some art, starting a collection or adding to their own collection. But also, this show is very, very diverse, and it just shows you the interest people have. And we want to discuss, and basically I want people to think about what they have on their walls right now and the difference between, say, just putting something to fill a space as opposed to having an original work of art. There's something so much more enjoyable about that. And really, when I say that is that, I always encourage people to buy what they like. It doesn't have to be something like, well, I'm only going to say, when I save money and buy a Picasso, then I'll put original art on the wall. No, you don't have to do that. You will see something that really moves you. You have an emotional response to it, and you should buy it, because every time you walk by it in your house, you will respond to it. And there's something about just sitting in your living room and just looking around and looking at original art, and there's something that moves you with each piece. So you have a story behind each piece. What interests me too is that all collectors come at collecting from a different road, a different point of view. Some people grew up with their families collected original art. Others had no art background at all, and then just suddenly had an epiphany. They saw something they really liked. It stopped them in their tracks, and they had to have that piece. So they got it, and now they have it in their house, and they just enjoy it. Every time they walk by it, they enjoy it. So this show really, it goes from, we have outsider art to Jim Dine, a famous pop artist, to Damien Hirst, the British artist who's does some really bizarre things. So there's quite industrial art here. We're right in the gallery right now, and I'm looking at some of that. And so there's a little bit of everything. Textile art, Teresa Baker. So it's, I think people really enjoy the show.
As we're looking around in the gallery, it is a wide variety of artwork, from some abstract to some pop art to some very traditional art that is highly representational. Take us through a couple of the pieces. What are some of your favorites?
My favorite, I shouldn't say my favorite. There's a lot of things that I really like. And I just want to say, people will come here and they'll recognize some artists. We had painting by Jerry Newman, Michael Kennaugh, but we have some early drawings from his sketchbook that are very, very different, but, really fascinating, that I think people will really enjoy. And, we've got a Keith Carter photograph from Sheila and Greg Buscemi's collection, and it's actually of Greg Buscemi, and from Keith's book called The Blue Man. And so that's pretty fascinating in itself. But one of my favorite pieces, and mainly because I came from the Cincinnati Art Museum, and we had a number of Jim Dine prints in the collection, and we have one here from the Roy and Kim Steinhagen collection. Paintbrushes. It's an etching of 5 paintbrushes, and it's from an early period. I believe it's from it is the early 70s, I think maybe 1973, and it's a period that I especially like of Jim Dine's work, because it shows the quality of his draftsmanship. I mean, there's just some fine lines, but it has an abstract quality to it. And I mean, it's subtle, but it really draws you in, and it really makes you look at it, because it's so simple. It's such a simple piece. Also, the Maudie Caron piece, we have a number of her pieces in the Dishman Permanent Collection, but this piece that I found is fascinating. It's probably one of the best pieces of Maudie's that I've seen. When I saw it at the Tam and Tom Kianoff collection, when I saw it in their house, I said, oh, I just have to have that. I think Night Queen is the name of it, and there's mirrors, and she has found objects, but it is a woman apparently. It's hard to tell, but it's great. We have a ceramic by Lynn Sweat, and Lynn Sweat is a well-known name here, and mostly as a painter and illustrator, but here we have a piece of sculpture. And I think that's really unusual that I think people will be interested to see. So that and much, much more. So that's.
Well, one of the pedestal pieces that is standing out to me, and it's not something that you typically see in an art exhibition, are the canisters that are front and center in the gallery up here.
You said that you had met with the collectors and had them pick things that they liked. So how did the canisters end up in the exhibition?
Well, like you said, I usually went to the collection and I might have picked one or two pieces that I liked, but I wanted the collector to pick something that he or she had a really strong emotional bond with. An emotional tie with it. It didn't have to be their most expensive piece or the most important piece, but something they connected to. And it may not even be something that I necessarily like, but that's not the point of the show. The point of the show is the connection between the art and the collector. And these are three pieces. I like to call this industrial art. And these you may not see these at your typical art museum, but you will if you go to the Museum of Modern Art, because they do have gallery for industrial art. And these are three pieces made by the Hall China Company, and they were for Westinghouse refrigerators in the 30s and 40s, actually 1939 and 1940. And they, again, to me, a lot of people say, well, if it's functional, I've heard this, if it's functional, it can't really be art. But it's all about design, and these are beautifully designed. I mean, to me, these are as enjoyable to look at as any two-dimensional painting or photograph or sculpture, three-dimensional sculpture. And these are obviously three-dimensional sculpture. You could call that these the same way, but I enjoy looking at these, and you could see people today, they collect them, they have them on display in their house just because when they walk by they look at them and it gives them pleasure, it gives them enjoyment, and I enjoy looking at them because they're so beautifully designed.
Along with wanting to encourage people to come to the Grand Ball and to purchase works to either start a collection in art or to add to their art collection, is there anything else you want to say about this particular exhibition?
Well, other than people should come and see it, and I think they will get excited, and they will think about collecting, and they will think about what they have. They may not have a collection, but they will think about their own collection. And also it makes people wonder, because art is so subjective, what I like, someone else is not going to like in many cases. So, it makes you think, well, why do people collect this? So it will, a lot of times it's a learning experience. And I think students will really like this too, because it is diverse. I mean, we have a little bit of everything.
How did you pick the collectors that you visited?
Well, I knew some already. I've only been here 2 years, so I figured there are a lot of people out there that I don't know. So I knew some already, and some were recommended to me. And then other people called me. So it's, kind of word of mouth, and it's a snowball effect. So hopefully we can do this, next year as well. And now that I've already got the ball rolling, you might say that it'll be much easier. I think we'll pull in more collectors and different collectors for next year's show. So because there are a lot more out there, and so it's a learning experience for me as well, and it's been an enjoyable one.
I would like to thank Dennis Kiel for speaking with me. For more information on Beaumont Collects, works of art from Southeast Texas collectors, you may contact the Dishman Art Museum at 409-880-8959. For State of the Arts, this is Alicia Hargreaves.